Hi everyone, and thank you for listening. This is a brand new podcast. It's called The Extra Point. It's about American football. And with me, Vernon Kay, we have two of the very, very best. Two of the foundations of the British American football community. It's an absolute pleasure and an honour to welcome the one and only Neil Reynolds and Darren Fletcher.
I've just actually worked out, Vern, that the fumble's given birth and we had Neil. So now there's three of us instead of two. Isn't that
Excellent
wonderful?
Stuff. Yeah, Neil, welcome along. Him and I have been doing an American football podcast for quite some time. I know you have as well, but this one has brought all three of us together because, as we know, we are great friends of Elite Sports Travel, and we've been on many trips with this travel company who specifically target sports fans and take them to the greatest and the best sporting events around the world. This podcast is about American football because all three of us have been entertained. We've enjoyed the company of Elite Sports Travel. So what we thought we would do, because it's a Super Bowl, because it is the pivotal, the main event, the Super Bowl 59, we thought we'd sit down and we'd have a chat about it. Now, Darren, I'll come to you first. The Super Bowl is a spectacle. You've been to many, many, many world finals of all kinds of sports. Where does this one sit?
Well, it sits right there at the top because it's different to any other. I mean, if you think about a Champions League final, I think UEFA would love to be able to put on a week for the Champions League final that even remotely resembles the Super Bowl week. The NFL experience, the fact that the superstars of the game are all kind of on site for the week. I mean, they're all selling stuff, which is fine, but you get to hear from them, you get to see them. And everybody descends on the city where the Super Bowl is, even if they haven't got a ticket. So a lot of people will go and they'll go home on Saturday. Now, the reason why it's so different to anything else is that nobody else can replicate it. They've thought about it. In some cases, they've tried. So it does mean that this event, and it is an event, it's not a game, it's way bigger than a game, it's an event. This event, I think, stands on its own, stands alone in the sporting calendar year upon year. It can't be imitated. Seemingly, it can't be replicated. So it always provides that absolute special place for me in the sporting calendar because of everything that it means.
Neil, for many decades you've been covering American football as a junior journalist for those amazing publications back in the day, and you've experienced many, many Super Bowls, and Darren's right, this is a unique event. It starts, I don't think people realise that Super Bowl starts the Sunday before the game, and it's a week's worth of entertainment, all to kick off, all heading towards kick-off. From your experience, from the many Super Bowls that you've been to, why do you think this event is so special?
So I think you're right. I mean, I'll fly out on Sunday for the Super Bowl the following Sunday, and I think it's every time I go there, I feel like I'm in a part of NFL history and a part of sporting history, and I think every Super Bowl tells a story. It has many stories leading up to it. Obviously, the stories that unfold during the game. And it kind of fits quite nicely with this podcast because the one thing all three of us said, well, everyone's out there analysing games. We will do that, of course, throughout the next year, but we want to tell our stories and our experiences. I think that's to me what I think about when I think of Super Bowls. Also, just to say, if I'm the offspring of you two and the fumble, you two want to question your nights out, I'm telling you.
Well, let's start right there, Neil Reynolds. Now, for many years, Fletcher and I have been going to Super Bowls together, either broadcasting or, as people say, for shits and giggles. Mm-hmm. And we've had the best time. And I'll be honest, I'll hold my hands up. Darren and I have been quite close to spooning in shared rooms. But the thing is, with the Super Bowl, is we've all said that it's an event. It's a standalone event. And one thing that fascinates me, and I experienced it my first ever Super Bowl, is that everyone has invested in this event. Everyone within the city, whatever host city it may be, everyone is 100% guaranteed to know about the game. Now, if we put that into relative terms, the FA Cup, it's on at Wembley, it's a soccer match. It's a football match, that's it. And you'll get the odd splattering of fans around London who might be wearing team colours, who may be singing in the odd pub or whatever. But in Super Bowl City, every single bar, every major building has some kind of branding, the Lombardi Trophy. It's got the countdown clock to kick off in every bar because the official NFL sponsor, has provided all the bars with the countdown clock. You cannot turn a corner without knowing that the Super Bowl is in town. And Neil, you pointed out something which I think is really special. Every game is different. Every final is different. And you do genuinely feel, I've never thought about this before, you do genuinely feel like you're part of a unique NFL experience. So not all Super Bowls are the same.
And I always say this whenever I'm broadcasting a Super Bowl, what's going to happen behind us? I think it hits different. And I'm sure Fletcher will tell us this, whether a first round of a Champions League match to a semi-final or a final. To me, a catch in the Super Bowl that can instantly become iconic. I've often said, and I over romanticize and I over dramatize, as our American friends would say, stuff because I write about it so much. But this is when players can get dipped in bronze and turn into statues. There's a statue outside Philadelphia Stadium of Nick Foles and Doug Peterson discussing the Philly special. You can become iconic, and you can write your name in NFL history for the rest of time. That's what the Super Bowl does. And Fletcher just hits different from a regular season game.
Well, it does. And let me kind of put the record straight. I'm not trying to do the Champions League final down if anybody's thinking of taking me off it because they don't appreciate it.
Good save.
Right?
Yeah, Darren's got underfloor heating to pay for, so, keep him on the gig.
I love that too. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to cut right to the chase, and I'm going to tell you about my experience in New Orleans at a Super Bowl, because this will be my second in New Orleans. And the first one, if you think back, was the one when the lights went out. We all lost power. I was commentating for 5 Live.
We were all there for that, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
the power went. Martin Johnson was with us, I think, at the time. I think he'd flip-flop between you guys on the telly, Neil, and us on the radio. That's how he got his ticket, by the way. So there you go. But it was the lead up to the Super Bowl that I remember more than anything else. So I didn't realise until I got there that 3 p.m. on Bourbon Street is like New Year's Eve anywhere else in the world. Every drink was 4 for the price of 1. The majority of which...
Whoa, hang on. Pull the reins back. 4?
4. For the
price of 1?
Yeah, and you could take them bar to bar. So you could get you drink 1, walk in with 3, and the next bar owner was just happy for you to be there, right? And he was doing the same deal. So they had what they called hurricanes, but they had these other ones that were called hand grenades. So the hand grenade, they were all drinking these hand grenades. They were plastic green hand grenades all over the floor of Bourbon Street. So I was with a good friend of ours, Simon Cross. And if Simon wants to sue, he can, because this will stand up in court. So Simon said to me, I'm going to try a hand grenade. So I said, okay. So I was just on the Bud Lights like normal. So Simon tries the hand grenade and really liked it. Really sweet. It was, you wouldn't have thought it was dangerous at all. By the time Simon had had a few hand grenades, Simon could only walk sideways. So if he tried to walk forwards, he went sideways. So we had to take him back to the hotel. Crab-like. He had to go sideways. So we'd point him forwards in the wrong direction. As he tried to go that way, he'd go sideways in the general direction of the hotel. And this is all in bright sunlight, 4:30 in the afternoon, and this place is absolutely bouncing. We then go to a bar later on Bourbon Street further down, which was a 24-hour music bar. So all they played, 3 bands played and did 8 hours each. 8 hours solid. And every hour or two, they'd pass a bucket around and you'd put a few dollars in. And all they played were covers, fantastic. But it was pitch black. So outside it's bright sunlight. And in there it's like 3 in the morning. And they were bringing these test tubes round and trying to persuade you to buy a test tube with whatever it had in it. So one of the fellas that was with us decided he'd have a test tube. So he paid the girl a few dollars, did the test tube, bang. Well, at this point now, whenever she saw him, he now had to have a test tube. To the point where when he said he didn't want another test tube, she became abusive. She grabbed him by the hair, slapped him around the face, and physically poured a test tube down his throat in this bar.
That'd be $5.
At which point we had to leave because it was now getting out of hand. I mean, you were now being force-fed test tubes in this place. But it was absolutely bouncing. And then we had Baltimore running away with it. Lights go out. Ray Lewis's last game. Lights come back on, and all of a sudden San Francisco can play again. Cue the conspiracy theories that the NFL rigged it to get the 49ers back in, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, it really is such a unique place. There is nothing, the smell of the place, Bourbon Street, my God, it stinks. But you want to go there because it's so lively. And it's a crazy place. And I think if you say to an American, where would you want the Super Bowl to be? The vast majority would say New Orleans because of what it signifies. Whether Las Vegas goes past it eventually, because they've only done the one. But New Orleans, whether it's the college championship game, whether it's the Final Four in college basketball, whether it's the Super Bowl, they all want to be in New Orleans. So they are special when you go there. And I don't know what you think, fellas. I still think there's something special about seeing the Superdome. Because when I first saw it, we didn't have any stadia like that. And we still haven't really. But the Superdome itself looks magnificent still.
So it's like a spaceship, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And the reason I think it is, I've been to two there. So I was at the same one as you guys, the Super Bowl 47. My very first Super Bowl I went to was the one after 9/11. So Brady's first Super Bowl win. That was surreal because there's fighter jets flying over the Superdome. But I think it's because they don't hide the Superdome. You know, they bury these stadiums now a lot of the times. It's right up there and it's just awe-inspiring.
Was that the one where U2 played at half-time and they had the big flag, which was
all the scrolls,
wasn't it?
Yeah, they had all the scrolls of the names of the victims rolling up behind them. That was very emotional. The whole game just felt... your emotions were played with the whole time, but you also felt on edge. It was a very weird feeling for that Super Bowl. The 47 one, I was in the studio with Kevin Cadle. We're filling. Jacoby Jones had just scored on the kickoff return. That was when
I was in the studio for that, Neil.
Yes,
I was
that's
up there.
right. You came in, and
I did. Yeah,
that's when the lights went out. After that, all the monitors just went, bzz, and I just turned to Kevin. I was like, "We're off air. I can't believe it." And must have been 2 a.m. back in the UK. Like you said, Fletch, Baltimore had run out to a huge lead. I'm standing outside the studio with Chappers. Mark Chapman and me are standing there. He's presenting it on the TV, and he's like, no one's watching when we come back on. No one's watching. And Vernon, you'll know afterwards. I mean, to this day, if you speak to Ray Lewis, we've all spent time with Ray. Ray's convinced the NFL turned the lights off to make a game of it.
He is convinced, absolutely convinced that the NFL turned the lights off just so it would be a spectacle and a showdown towards the end of the game. But NFL games, more often than not, are always down to the last 5 minutes. Right. And that's why we love the game.
You see, he's another person that we should mention. And it's a shame, really, because we're talking a lot about Baltimore and Ray Lewis, that they didn't make the Super Bowl this year. But we went out with Ray Lewis, Vernon, after
Miami.
The game in Minnesota. It was Minnesota. It was
they all blend into one. Oh, that's because it was Ray Lewis in Minnesota. It was Ed Reed in Miami.
Yes. In a cigar bar in Miami. We didn't really go out with Ed Reed. We kind of joined Ed Reed, whether he liked it or not.
He had no choice.
At his table.
Yeah, but we went out with Ray, and we'd had quite a lively time at the game, Neil, because we all of a sudden found ourselves in like the Patriots section, and then bizarrely decided to support Philadelphia all the way through this game, which didn't go down well at the start, but by the end, we were okay.
Yeah.
We'd made acquaintances. I remember Vernon bothering John Harbaugh for numerous selfies. I remember Vernon almost being forcibly removed from the stadium for trying to buy too many beers. And then I remember going out with Ray Lewis that night, not remembering a great deal about it, and Vernon saying to me, look, just try and act as though you've been out with somebody famous before. Don't be sitting there bothering him all night. I think I lasted about 15 minutes before I got my phone out. Was it that long?
Yeah, well, the reason for that was... like Fletch said, I almost got, but serious, no word of a lie, I almost got escorted out of the stadium because at the Super Bowl, unlike many sporting events, at the Super Bowl, you're only allowed 2 beers per person. So what I was doing was lapping. I was going to the bar, getting 2, put them in my pockets, going back, getting 2, put them in my pockets, getting back, 2 more in the pockets, and someone I didn't know, an officer, a county sheriff or whatever, was observing me just going round in circles to the bar. So I eventually had 10 beers on my person, got pulled to one side, ID'd. You're going to have to come with me, sir. You can't buy 10 beers. Who are they for? They're for me. No. Nobody drinks 10 beers during a game. No, I'm serious. I'm from Great Britain. We like a beverage. Sir, stop talking. Come with me. At which point Fletcher arrived and said, "Where's the beer?" I said, "Oh, I've had it taken off me. This gentleman doesn't believe that we're going to drink 10 beers."
Fletcher took his to a walk off.
I know. You know you're in trouble when Fletcher's to the rescue, right? So eventually he says, "I'm going to let you take 2 beers. I'm going to let you take your ID, but you've got to come with me and we'll photocopy it." I was like, "Oh, look, the game is in full floor." So I said, "Trust me, I'm a tourist. I'm from England. I'm just here to enjoy the game. I apologise." And he was like, he's staring us both up and down and said, "Off you go. But if I catch you again looping the bar, you're going out." I'm like, what?
You said I won't be back for another quarter.
Exactly. But my funny story about the New Orleans Super Bowl, the Ravens 49ers, is Martin Johnson, former England coach, World Cup winner with the England team against Australia way back when. He was sat next to Adam Durdy, who's now the defensive coordinator of the Seahawks. And the funniest thing about that day was watching Adam turn around to me and just raise an eyebrow as Martin Johnson tried to explain the game to him.
Brilliant.
It was like, it was so funny. And I'm like, just roll with it. He's like...
I think this, and I know we haven't really got a script, but doesn't the Super Bowl throw up random sightings of people?
Oh, yes!
So whether it's like Adam and Martin Johnson, John Harbaugh. So I remember once walking through the lobby, it was in San Diego, and you obviously see so many people, and that you can tell the size of the star by the entourage that follows them. And there was various people walking through the whole time. And then there's just, you can't see who's in the middle of this throng. It's 100, around whoever's in the middle. It's like they're arriving for some court case on a Hollywood movie. And I tried to get in, and I ended up being part of the throng trying to follow them. And in there, stooped over, kind of walking, but sort of shooting the breeze with everyone, was Joe Namath. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of Mr. Super Bowl. I love the Super Bowl, and I'm sure we're all the same, because it brings out the fan in us where we're like, oh, it's Joe Montana, or it's so-and-so. And because of all the commitments they have media-wise, it throws together some really weird combinations as well. And I always enjoy that part of it.
We were, I can't remember which one it was, Darren, when we were kind of hanging on the coattails of a very young Travis Kelce. Yeah. When he was doing his Old Spice promo. He was an ambassador for Old Spice, and he was just wandering around freely, going about his business. We had a chat with him. "Oh, you guys are from the UK." The usual conversation. Do they have NFL in the UK? That kind of stuff. And you're right, Neil. You see the most bizarre people. One story, one of my favourite stories, is I was asked out of my seats to go and sit in a box with a friend of ours who was head of NFL International at the time. Not Alistair Kirkwood. Who was the guy in New York who was in charge of NFL?
Mark Waller?
Yes, Mark Waller. So Mark Waller says, "I've got 2 spare tickets in the box. Go and get Vernon his guest." So we walk into the box, and we're greeted by Dwight Clark.
Oh, wow.
The famous recipient of the catch from Joe Montana. So amazing. I'm in bits. We then go down, and there's Mark Wahlberg sat comfortably. And then he's sat next to Queen Latifah. And then behind us is Britney Spears. And behind her is John Travolta. And it was the most mishmashed group of people ever.
Brilliant.
And here's something for you. Darren, you know from experience, I like a light beverage when we get to the Super Bowl. Not one person in that box had an alcoholic beverage apart from me and my mate.
If you can indulge me for 5 minutes, right, maybe less. I'll try and speed it up. So, Super Bowl 45. I go down, it's the first Super Bowl I've been to in Dallas. And the first person I saw was the great John Madden.
Wow.
And that kind of, I don't think I've ever seen anybody NFL-wise that's kind of made me go, wow, since. Probably because it was the first Super Bowl and I saw him. I ended up doing the preview program last year for 5 Live. And I ended up doing it with Flavor Flav from Public Enemy, which was quite an eclectic mix, maybe Flavor Flav. But he said he liked the BBC and he liked London, so he was going to do the whole thing with us instead of doing 2 minutes. So we walked around the media centre with Flavor Flav. The two I want to tell you, though, they're crazy, these. So the first one in Dallas, again, somebody had come with us who we didn't know. He'd kind of leaked onto the trip, a guy called Bobby. And he got this ticket because he was a Packer fan. He was like part of our trip, bizarrely. So we went for a wander around the Cowboys Stadium. And when he came back, we said, oh, everything okay? He went, yeah. He said, I was with this right miserable so-and-so in the lift, though. So, oh, fine. So I'm preparing for the game. Never thought anything of it. And apparently he got in the lift and tried to have a conversation with this woman in the lift, and she just completely ignored him. At which point, Christina Aguilera comes out to sing the anthem, and Bobby says to me, that's the woman from the lift.
Brilliant.
So we've been in the lift with Christina Aguilera, and it hadn't gone well. But we did the Super Bowl in Santa Clara, and Greg Brady said to us, look, a mate of mine's got this Super Bowl party after. Our names are down. It's difficult to get a bite to eat and a beer because everywhere's full. We've got to go back through San Jose. The event's in San Jose. We can have a look at it, have something to eat, and just leave when we're ready. So off we go, myself, Greg, Simon Cross, and Rocky Boyman, who we all know. So when we get to the party, we're the only people there. It's like an outdoor bar with an indoor bit, and we're the only people there, we think. Rocky then said he's nipping to the loo. Comes back out, and he said, you'll never guess what. He said, there's 3 people sat on a sofa in there, and one of them is Lady Gaga. So we're thinking, so there's 3 of us, and there's 3 of them, and one of them is Lady Gaga. So we've all then kind of, it's Lady Gaga. She's sat there. So more and more people start to arrive. So as this continues to build in number, it never got past maybe 150 people. The next people who turn up, Bruno Mars walks in and went round and introduced himself to everybody, followed quickly by Chris Martin and the rest of Coldplay. So we're thinking, where on earth are we now? Turns out we were at the after-show party for the half-time show, which was topped off by Jay-Z and Beyonce arriving later. Beyonce, who just got in the middle of the crowd and mingled with everybody, and Jay-Z, I kid you not, sat on a chair with a velvet rope in front of him and 2 bodyguards either side. He sat there behind this rope on his own.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Beyonce was at the bar getting the drinks, and Jay-Z was... We're saying, what the hell are we doing here? How have we got in here? And he was sat behind a velvet rope on his own, and nobody could cross the velvet rope. It was like the Emperor's arrived. It was crazy.
See, NFL fans who know me would know that my musical taste and knowledge ended with ABBA in the 70s. So a lot of that would be wasted on me. But when I worked for NFL UK, they asked me, it was a San Diego Super Bowl, the one where the Bucks beat the Raiders, so 2002 season. NFL UK asked me to go to MC Hammer's seat and ask if he would join the TV coverage. Is there anyone less qualified to talk to MC Hammer than me? So that was awkward. And this is not Super Bowl related, but once I had to get in a lift with Paul Potts, who was doing the national anthem at a London game. And I was told, you don't talk to Paul and you don't look him in the eye. And I'm like, you're okay. I don't want to. I'm absolutely fine with that.
Really?
That might
Paul Potts?
That might be twice we're in legal trouble already. This only episode one.
Wow.
That's a classic. That's an absolute
I was like,
classic.
don't worry, Paul, I'm absolutely fine. Not necessary.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. We have all 3 of us have had amazing experiences at the Super Bowl. And as young gentlemen growing up admiring the game and watching the spectacle from our sofas, when you get there, nothing changes, does it? It's still massive. It's still exciting. The thrill you get in the build-up on telly, you get whilst you're at the tailgate, which is another special event that they do at the Super Bowl.
I don't want to get too kind of absorbed with X's and O's and all that kind of thing. Do either of you think Philly can win this game? I mean, I kind of watched KC last week. First time they got past 30 points in any game this season, because I thought it was the first time they had to.
Exactly.
They seem like the kind of team that's got so much more in the pocket if they need it. And a lot of references have been made in the US this week about Patrick Mahomes wearing red, Michael Jordan wearing red, Tiger Woods on a Sunday wearing red. And he's got that feel about him, hasn't he now, this transcendental player that whatever level he's got to get to and whatever he needs to deliver. Because if you think back 2 years ago when they played each other before, Jalen Hurts outplayed him on the day. and still didn't win the game. Can we make any kind of case that KC don't win the game, or are we going to see history with this three-peat?
I mean, you've got a definite chance to see in history. All I would say is that I think the Eagles are better defensively than the Bills. They are better with Saquon Barkley testing. James Cook had a great game in the championship game. Saquon Barkley's on another level this year. So I think there's a real case to be made for the Eagles to do it. I think it'll be a one-score game like it was last time. I mentioned this on the TV right at the start of the playoffs. I've just written this word down, but it's the Chiefs. They are inevitable.
Yes.
They're inevitable. That's how it feels. So if you asked me to put my house on it, I would say the Chiefs. But I think you can make a case. This is a much stronger Philadelphia team. Might even argue it's a stronger Philadelphia team than 2 years ago.
Yes. I'm taking everything that you've said in, Neil, and I think, I know you're bang on the money. I think the Eagles' defense is pivotal to this. And one thing that I observed when they were playing Washington is how quick they get to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the way that they schemed Washington was something of a surprise to the Commanders. And I think hopefully they'll get their head screwed on and they'll try and figure out what the Kansas City Chiefs offense is. Now, before you pile in, I know that that's a virtually impossible task because they re-scheme and re-scheme and re-scheme for whoever they're going to play. And they're very, very clever in what they do, the Kansas City Chiefs. But the one thing that I noticed this season with the Chiefs is I don't think their receiving core is the kind of receiving core that Patrick Mahomes needs. I know it's been controversial last year. I know people say it's a weak part. Their Achilles heel is their receiving core. I don't know what it is, but I just don't think that they benefit him as a player. And I know he's special. I know, Darren, you're probably going to fly some statistic at me. But just watching them on the field, I don't feel comfortable watching I don't have faith in their receiving core. That's what it is.
I'm not going to give you numbers, but I'm going to give you variation. And I think he's got now, because it's a healthy receiving core, and it hasn't been all season, he's got Xavier Worthy, who's the wild card, the explosion, the Tyreek Hill. He's got Travis Kelce, who's Travis Kelce. And Travis Kelce, like a lot of them, doesn't seem to bother with the regular season anymore. That seems to get in the way. When he gets to the playoffs...
He's probably the biggest disappointment in fantasy football this year.
But look what he's been like in the two playoff games. Yeah. He's been money again. DeAndre Hopkins... He's got a chip on his shoulder because he said this week they traded me away for pennies my prime. He's slighted. He sees this. And then you've got Hollywood Brown. And I just kind of look at it all. And I think he's got a bit of everything. He's got a lot of speed. And I just think, when you get to this stage, I think Neil makes a good point. If this is a one-score game, then give me the coach and quarterback 10 times out of 10. And that, I think, is the difference in this scenario, whichever way we look at it.
2 minutes to go, Mahomes is scoring. It's as simple as that.
112
it's
of them
as simple
already.
As that.
You just mentioned all those receivers, Fletch. What he has got as well is Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Andy Reid puts... And that whenever I say this, I worry that I'm slighting Mahomes and his job's made easier, but his job's made easier by Andy Reid. The play that clinched the game last week, and obviously I don't want to get too deep into it, they sent 3 guys across the middle. All the defenders are trying to scrap for space to get through to the other side. Out comes Samaje Perine out of the backfield. Easy first down, game over. So I don't think it matters whether it's Samaje Perine, Noah Gray, some random player like Justin Watson. Somebody will step up because of what Andy Reid creates. So the biggest defense, I think the Eagles got the number 1 defense in the NFL. So it is going to be a factor. But their biggest defense will be Saquon Barkley keeping that ball for 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah, I think you're right, Neil. Their biggest defense is keeping ahead of Kansas City on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
It really is that simple. Their offensive line, have you seen the Eagles' offensive line when they stand in a straight line? It's like the Great Wall of China.
Do you know when you talk about numbers, they said on the television broadcast at the weekend, the shortest person on the offensive line is 6'6". He's the small one. Obviously not the centre. Cam Jurgens is smaller. But the 2 guards and the 2 tackles, the smallest guy is 6'6". I mean,
Massive.
they are... That's a big old large amount of humanity standing in your way, isn't it?
And it defines everything they do. That's why Saquon Barkley gets stronger as every game goes on. Now, he's not... You wouldn't think at first glance Saquon's a physical back. So it's not like he's wearing people down like Derrick Henry does. he's not the one doing the wearing down. It's Jordan Mailata, it's Lane Johnson. It is an absolute wall of humanity, as you say up there, and it drives everything they do.
See, I can make a case here that there's a Patriots element to the way they're going to stop Philadelphia, KC. And let's not sleep on the KC defense.
Yeah.
I know what you've just said there, Neil, about this being the best unit in the league. Spagnuolo's unit's not that far behind. A lot of superstars on that defense. A lot of speed at linebacker. I think they've got the best corner in the game in Trent McDuffie. I think they've got the best interior defensive lineman in Chris Jones. So I think you can make a case. But I think if you look at it, it seems it's far too simple, and you'll tell me a million reasons why it's not going to happen. But I think if you've got Trent McDuffie looking after A.J. Brown, and then you're kind of selling out to stop Saquon Barkley, you're then saying to Jalen Hurts, who's not been that good this year, now go and win us a Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes. Belichick was the master, wasn't he? It taken enough away that you got nothing else really to play with when it came down to it.
Yeah.
Having Saquon, though, Neil, I'm going to throw this to you. Having Saquon Barkley there, it makes their offense honest, which makes the defense think about what's coming next. Because if you've got a running back like Saquon Barkley, you have that as a weapon. And we know, Fletch, what you just said, Jalen Hurts, he's not the best quarterback when it comes to passing it. In fact, if you look at his statistics, they're a lot like the game against Washington. He hardly threw anything in the first half. It was unbelievable. But yet they managed to rack up a load of points. So what I'm saying is Neil, if you shut down Saquon Barkley, if you scheme your defense specifically just to stop the run, can the Eagles score points?
Yeah, I think they can, because I think everyone early on, we saw Saquon in Brazil against the Packers. Came out 160 odd yards, 3 touchdowns. We knew when you think about the Philadelphia Eagles attack this year, it starts with Saquon Barkley. So everyone knows that every week. And he still had 14 100-yard rushing days. That's the most of any player ever in NFL history. So you know that Saquon's the one you've got to stop, and they still can't stop him. Now, if for some reason they hold him to 67 yards or something like that, I think there's enough. I think I've raised those same questions on broadcasts. Is there a problem with Jalen Hurts? And I think it's just they don't need to use him. I really genuinely
You think it's that simple?
Yes, because look at the throw he made down the sideline to A.J. Brown last week. Like, literally dropped it in from 40 yards away. Absolute money. He can still do it. I believe he can still do it. If this becomes a Jalen Hurts game, his best game I've ever seen him play was 2 years ago in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Now, he's declined a little bit since then, but they've got Saquon Barkley. So I think that's still the plan. You take Saquon away, and I dare you to beat me, Jalen. And I think he can, but then I would worry more, obviously, for the Eagles.
I think Mahomes, and I think the Chiefs and Mahomes win this by at least a touchdown. I think it's 1.5. They're minus 1.5, aren't they, on the line? Kansas City. I think a lot of people think it might be a field goal. I think it'd be at least a touchdown. I just can't see. Mahomes not making history. It's a really basic view that I've got, but I'm kind of like...
Fletch, you gave the best stat when you said they scored over 30 points for the first time this year, and you backed it up with the killer words, because they had to.
Yeah.
That's the only time they've had to. So when they have to, if they have to score 40 this week in the Super Bowl, they will.
Yeah.
That's why I feel they're inevitable. So I think I'm on the fence. No,
I'll
go Chiefs. I'll go Chiefs. I'll go.
It's inevitable. I think I'm on the fence.
Listen. You're not.
Hang on. Let me just say something. But Neil, that's the Super Bowl. That is the Super Bowl. I think gone are those days where it was a nailed-on victory for one team. I think those days are well and truly behind us.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I think we go back to the beginning of this podcast and everything we talked about the Super Bowl. It flourishes because not only is it a spectacle event, it's actually a great game of American football.
I want to give you a couple of numbers because we like to do that, Vern. We'll have more because we're going to do this during the season. We're going to reconvene again around the draft, I think. And then we're also going to do one at the back end of the summer when Neil's been to all the training camps. So Neil's got 2 jobs this summer. He's got to do all his work at the training camps and he's got to get enough stories to entertain us when he comes back, which I don't think is going to be a problem. And then if you'll have us, we're going to do this all the way through the regular season, once a week. We're going to make this a regular thing. and we're really excited about doing it. I'll bring some numbers to the game as we go. I've only got 2, Vern, this week.
Right.
The first one is that when Shad Khan, now Shad Khan's appointed his new head coach, Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen could win 83 games in a row and Shad Khan would still have a losing record as an owner. That's how bad it's been in Jacksonville.
Yeah, but as Liam Cohen said at his opening press conference, Duval. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Oh,
he was overexcited, Neil. He was far too excited.
Let me ask you this, Neil, because it sometimes we've always said, Fletcher and I, no matter how good or how bad the Jags are, with their commitment to the UK, every single member of the UK's NFL community, it doesn't matter whether you're a die-hard fan of another team, you've got to have a small, look at him, you've got to have a small percentage of affection for the Jags because they've committed themselves to the UK.
Zero.
Just a little bit.
Zero.
So I do.
Hey.
I know they're dreadful, but...
So my youngest daughter, Poppy, is a Jags fan because they play here every year. And
There
now
you
I
go.
feel terrible for her because she gets wound up every Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they've showed
I agree.
commitment.
I
They've showed
agree, Fred.
dedication. The
Yeah.
only thing I ask of the Jaguars is let's have them over here more often.
Oh.
Instead of the games, the spectacle, the one at Wembley, one at Tottenham. No. I don't see why they can't have 3 weeks training camp at the Grove because it's going to be summertime.
Now I've said that before. I've told the Jags this. They should have their training camp here. They get a lot
should.
more work done.
Yeah.
They get a
wouldn't
lot
be as
more
hot.
work done. There's less distraction, and I'm guaranteed that the fan base would multiply.
Yeah.
It would.
And let me tell you this, right? If you want to know why Dallas can't be competitive in the NFC East next year, the salary cap hit for Dak Prescott is $90 million in 2025. The cap hit for Jalen Hurts is $21.8 million, and the cap hit for Jaden Daniels is 8.6. So I'm just hazarding a guess that the Eagles and the Commanders rosters are going to be a lot deeper than Dallas, who are chucking $90 million at Dak next year. Astonishing. Oh, and Brian Schottenheimer's the head coach. Where did that come from? I mean,
Neil, they'll ask him to restructure that, won't they?
They
Dak, you would
can't.
imagine.
They just literally signed it.
Yeah.
They can't, not this soon. Surely, what a back down that would be from Dak and his people.
guys,
If he's a team player, you've always got to go with the Brady model.
have you ever heard an owner or a chairman appoint a manager and say, if nobody can accuse me of taking a big swing, this is the biggest risk I could have taken, when the fella sat next to him, Jerry Jones, on Brian Schottenheimer.
It's embarrassing.
Brian Schottenheimer's tried to actually style it out. If you watch him, he's kind of nodding, he's like, oh yeah. And he must have been sat there thinking, really?
That's almost as bad as earlier this off-season when Shad Khan was on the Zoom with the local media with Trent Baalke, and he's like, if the new head coach wants a new GM, we'll make a change at that position. Trent Baalke's in the next box. Trent Baalke should have just got up and walked out.
So
Oh,
play a quick game with you before we finish.
Go on.
I do this on a Friday on the radio and I love it. Call it Winner Stays On, right? Vern, you're going to go first.
yep.
And you've got all-time great players.
Yep.
So I'm going to give you a player
Yep.
to start with. I'm going to
Yep.
give you another one, and you're going to go either or, and we're going to work it out.
Perfect.
So we're going to start, Vern, with Peyton Manning.
Yep.
Peyton Manning or Joe Montana?
Joe Montana.
Joe Montana or Barry Sanders?
Barry Sanders.
Barry Sanders or Tom Brady?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady or Reggie White?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady or Jim Brown?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady or Lawrence Taylor?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady or Walter Payton?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady or Jerry Rice?
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes?
Tom Brady.
And you said to me once on a podcast that Tom Brady wasn't the greatest NFL player of all time. And you just proved categorically that he is.
Well, no, because there was 3 players before him.
Neil,
Go on.
you've got coaches.
Oh, go on.
Oh, here we go.
So I'm going to start you with Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs or Tom Landry?
Tom Landry.
Tom Landry or Chuck Noll?
Yeah, Chuck Noll.
Chuck Noll or Bill Walsh?
Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh or John Madden?
Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh or Bill Parcells?
Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh or Vince Lombardi?
They named the trophy after him. Do you know what? No, he was innovative as a head coach. Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh or Bill Belichick?
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick or George Halas?
Bill Belichick.
Bill Belichick or Andy Reid?
Andy Reid. I believe. No, and I'll tell you why. Because he's got this team. I believe it. He's got this team to the Super Bowl. 5th time in 6 seasons. Patriots never had that kind of run. The Steelers never had that run. Dallas didn't. San Francisco didn't. He's only 3 games behind Belichick now in terms of playoff wins. Yes, he's got to catch up with the Super Bowls. He can win a 4th Super Bowl 2 weeks from now. So I actually think this is actually a discussion. I believe Andy Reid should be considered among the greatest coaches. And I'm saying he's the greatest.
And also, just on that, giving you another number, the Super Bowl will be his 45th postseason game, which is a new NFL record. He was level with Belichick on Championship Sunday, and now he's got to the Super Bowl when he walks out. Provided he's not fired between now and then, he'll set the new record at that point.
Let's hope no one pushes him over on Super Bowl Sunday this year. Let him have a nice day at the office.
Is that your first big statement of this podcast, that Andy Reid might just be the greatest NFL coach of all time?
I only thought I was on once, so I thought I'd go strong. Am I back then?
Of course you are.
No, we're rolling into the next season.
We're all in it together. We're all in it together.
Hey, I'll tell you what, we'll clip that sentence,
I didn't mean to
and
go
that's where we'll
viral.
start off when we get to draft time.
They'll be like, oh, you hot take artist.
Yeah, no, I don't mind all stuff like that. I'm going to tell you now that my Chicago Bears will win 11 games with Ben Johnson next year.
Mm-hmm. I like that. I like Ben Johnson and I like Caleb. So
yeah,
take that.
By the way, I'm also going to say this: by the end of next season, they'll be saying a lot more about Caleb Williams than they are about Jaden Daniels. I think he's going to pass him with Ben Johnson next year. I think they're a little bit quick.
They need to get a receiver
on Jaden Daniels.
You've got to help him out.
Fraction quick. We all said this about CJ Stroud last year. Bobby Slowick was the hot coordinator who's going to be a head coach. He's got fired. CJ Stroud was struggling. I know his receivers were injured, but Patrick Mahomes had no receivers really this season, and he won, 15 games?
Yeah, fair enough.
That's what the great ones do.
Fair enough. All right, Fletch, let's finally come to you. Who's going to win?
KC. I think KC are going to win by at least a touchdown. I don't think it's going to be a dull game. I think it'll be relatively tight, but I just think 4th quarter separation will come. Just don't think that Jalen Hurts right now can go nose to nose with Mahomes as he did 2 years ago. But I tell you what I'm really looking forward to, and I feel really privileged to be in the stadium on the night. I can't wait to watch Saquon Barkley in a Super Bowl. I think that's going to be special.
Neil?
Well, I sat on the fence, so I'm obviously thinking it's going to be a draw. So we'll have a replay like the old FA Cup finals on the Thursday night back at the Superdome. I'll say the Chiefs 27-24.
All right, I'm gonna go against the grain. I'm gonna be the salmon swimming against the tide. I'm gonna go the Eagles. However, here's something that we can all expect. There's gonna be one of those plays. It's either gonna be a kickoff return, it's gonna be a punt return. There's going to be something crazy that happens in this Super Bowl because you've got so much talent on the field. 2 great competitive sides. The Eagles have got a chip on their shoulder. They're going to come out fighting the best defense, a great offense. I think there's going to be a highlight which will be played from a week Sunday forevermore. And it'll be that moment. There's going to be a moment.
Saquon breaks one in the Super Bowl. Saquon breaks a biggie in the Super Bowl. 40 yards plus. He's done it all the way through, hasn't he? He's kind of money. He did it twice against the Rams. He did it last week against Washington. I mean, he's just at the moment, I think he'll break one.
Maybe he'll do it with the Eagles 3 points behind.
Yeah.
2 seconds left on the clock. It's 3rd and 8. He busts through the gap, through the past the big, what's he called? Mailata. What's his surname?
Jordan Mailata.
He'll go past him on the outside, running up the sideline, and then he'll just go, "Thank you very much."
I think we'll see something historic.
Did you see today that Jake Paul has said that if he wins MVP, Saquon Barkley will buy him a Ferrari? Because normally you get the truck or whatever you get to choose. Jake Paul has said if Saquon Barkley wins MVP at the Super Bowl, not the league MVP, MVP of the Super Bowl, he will buy him a Ferrari. So I'm guaranteeing you that Seiko is busting his you-know-whats to get that Ferrari.
Yeah, nice.
Fantastic.
You'll probably pay him as well.
Yeah.
Right, thank you very much for listening. Darren, thank you. Neil, thank you. This was the Extra Point podcast in association with Elite Sports Travel. And if you are going on that Super Bowl trip to New Orleans for Super Bowl 59 with Elite Sports Travel, have a great time. It's going to be absolutely awesome. Ben and the rest of the Elite Sports Travel staff will thoroughly look after you. And that's the beauty of these trips, fellas. We've not really talked about it, but I'll say it now as we close this podcast. When you go on an Elite Sports Travel trip, nothing, absolutely nothing is required of you. Pay your money, turn up, and it's absolutely awesome.
And let me just make the point here that Neil will still call his the Neil Reynolds trip next year, but we will be stealing the Extra Point trip, won't we? Even though Neil won't be on it. So you and I will.
Wait, I might get on 2 trips, that means.
There you go. Yeah, nice.
Now you see why I did it all along. Look, it's brilliant to be on the road with the fans. Elite Sports look after them wonderfully. Everything's first class. The clue's in the name. And it's nice to be with the community of NFL fans we love. So on that, kumbaya moment. Back to you, Van.
We'll speak to you soon.
Neil. Nice one, Fletch. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and like I said, we will be with you for the whole of, well, not the whole, but the whole draft brouhaha. So we'll see you then.